life in 1970 was the establishment of the first commercially successful FM radio station on Earth. Now imagine that. And we had the corrupt corporate and a very corrupt government that had AM radio controlling all the information that people got. It's very similar to what's happening today. Okay, so we broke that with a cultural revolution. And how did we do it? We did it using something like COVID-19, man's inhumanity to man. The river in my city, the Cuyahoga River, a major river, caught fire, now get ready, 17 times since 1854. In 1970, it caught fire 3 times. I swam in 1968 in Lake Erie, and I came out with infections. All the fish were dead. The environment was dying. Man's inhumanity to man was literally destroying the earth. And when we started the FM radio station, Greg, you might remember KSFX in San Francisco, who joined with us. Okay, let me tell you what they did. We produced the environmental movement. We established Earth Day, and millions of people got together and said, we have no more time to permit this. And they became advocates. American people and European people and Middle Eastern people and India, the whole world came together to care for the earth, and we established Earth Day. In 1970, the President of the United States, and never before could such a thing occur in its history, and that in December, the Environmental Protection Agency was established. Okay. If you look at the last time something like that occurred, where man's inhumanity was attacked by American corporations and the average consumer in advocacy, writing checks, voting, and promoting awareness, okay? 1887, they established the Animal Protection League in New York City because of the horror mankind was inflicting on animals. Can you imagine what it was like in 1870? And I thought to myself, how horrible was mankind's influence on mankind in 1870? It was really horrible. But they focused on animals. 100 years later, we focus on the environment. Well, here we are 50 years later, 2020. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, everybody here. I'm going to tell you why. This is the first time in history man's inhumanity to man is being focused on by man, and we have the tools to enhance the human condition, to deliver an ideal grace, to sustain life with quality. And that's our job, and that's what we're going to do. Okay. Greg Coonan is 3.5 hours behind us, and I'm not sure what may have happened to him this morning. So we have scheduled this in such a way that we have a lot of options for how we want to get this particular forum done. Let me ask you, Arich, thank you very much for having the forum on. We're looking forward to a long time association with you and the conference this coming year, okay? The Future Medicine Conference. All these gentlemen will be available for that event. I'm not sure who Mark Zamar is, or Vanjania Cesano. I'm just wondering who they might be.
Yeah, they are the past panelists, but they'll stay over there.
You want to stay? Okay, great. We welcome you, Marco, Evangelia, and the others. Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
That's Evgenia from Russia and Marco from Australia. And the rest of the people are our team who are actually managing the whole panel, so that if there is any network glitch, they can take you back to the panel.
I feel this to be a very warm, embracing kind of, I'm very comfortable. I've watched a number of your events, especially our girl, Dr. Diana Hamilton, and her Curiosity program. And it applies directly to what we're dealing with the vast amount of death, unnecessary death in the world over COVID. It appalls me. And at 74 years old, I want to give just a briefest insight into my life, so the audience can appreciate like why I'm the founder and chairman of such a foundation. And how we're associated with these brilliant orthomolecular, nutritional-based medicine, multi-PhD'd doctors whose entire lives are focused on enhancing the human condition and actually, in this case, saving human life, and oftentimes being blocked from the ability to save human life. I liken the crisis we're dealing with COVID to the Second World War. You'd have to be me, born in 1946 at the end of that war and growing up with all those veterans and appreciating the nature of horror that the world dealt with that tyranny, the tyranny that produced a global war. We are dealing with tyranny in medicine that has produced a global war where the enemy appears to be the people of the world and the dynamic realities of their value, the life value, the human resource, these values of human dignity do not seem to be relevant anymore in the field of medicine, mainstream medicine. Okay. So I am the son of a funeral director. And in fact, I enter my life's work at 8 years old with my father on a wooden ginger ale case, ginger ale beverage case at 8 years old in the embalming room of the funeral home, dealing with the appreciation of my first cadaver, dealing with dignifying a human being after death. That was my father's ministry. And I was prepared for that, having hunted and fished with him since 6 years old and dealing with all the nature of preparing the game, the deer, the rabbits, and the fish, and you can go on and on, the wild boars for our table, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, you name it, okay. So my focus now then evolved as I became older, and burying all my friends that got killed in Vietnam. I kind of ran away from the funeral business and I thought about how to enhance the human condition and dignify human life during its life. So I've been associated with a number of foundations, like I'm the founder of the Robert F. Kennedy Scholarship Fund, the Robert F. Kennedy Fund, the first deferred sentencing programs in American judicial history, 1977. And I'm actually a recognized China specialist from having lived in China for 21 years and dealt with building an economic base there that is initially now feeding about 350 million people out of 1,250,000,000 people. So feeding China and getting China into the mainstream of economic strength for a vast population in harmony with India, another 1.2 billion person community, the world's largest democracy, and the world's largest communist tyrannical state brought together with a common border. So we're dealing in times that are spectacular. Now, this morning, my hope is that, folks, I would greatly appreciate it, whoever is watching, and we'll do this again at the end of the event. Here's the Future of Medicine Foundation. Our purpose is defeating COVID-19 by returning health to humanity through nutrition-based medicine. Below in blue is the link to the foundation. The most important program of that foundation is to establish advocacy within our corporate community, and more importantly than even that, establishing advocacy for the future of medicine and defeating COVID-19 in common sense terms. You'll learn all about that this morning, okay? So if you would appreciate the ambassador program where you can represent your community, your city, your state, or your country in direct relation to the foundation and its ability to affect positive change in your country. Quite a serious opportunity in your life. What you're dealing with this morning in this particular forum is the ability to save human lives. If you watch this forum and you get to this website, you will have every tool to know the joy, the life experience that I have earned and now know the joy of saving a human life. And I'll be honest with you, it is inevitable. The function of delivering therapy that prevents and or promotes a successful defeat of a virus in the very early stage and or a clinical, critical, ill patient, all those therapies are available for you, okay, in this website. Okay, so I'd like to now introduce Dr. Gonzalez. Okay, he's a professor of nutrition at Biochemistry University in Puerto Rico, Medical Science Campus, School of Public Health. He's quite a brilliant guy. He's an Orthomolecular Medicine Hall of Fame inductee, okay? And he's going to give you an introduction into the very foundations and birth of orthomolecular medicine. This is nutritional-based medicine. This is a form of medicine that is quite common, but not available very often outside of integrative medicine or in mainstream medicine. So at the end of the day, you're having a real blessing here to learn the history of nutrition-based medicine, which is proving to really be effectively curing the coronavirus. Very few people should be dying from the coronavirus. So here you go. Let's defeat tyranny in medicine and let's return humanity to health.
Thing I wanted to say is that one of the original orthomoleculars said that discovery is seeing what everybody else has seen, but thinking what nobody else has thought. I'm going to start with that. It's that Albert Szent-Györgyi, Nobel Prize winner, also member of the Hall of Fame of Orthomolecular Medicine. What is orthomolecular medicine? It's really the right molecule in the right time in the right form. It's the use of precursor molecules capable of correcting metabolism to achieve the necessary balance to reach the physiological healthy state. It's a non-toxic, physiologically friendly therapeutic approach. And I think it has many advantages in the sense of, number one, being non-toxic, number two, using molecules that we normally ingest, basically vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients in order to achieve what is the necessary balance, which is the physiological healthy state. It had been given many names: megavitamin therapy, nutritional supplement therapy, or it started as orthomolecular psychiatry. Then it got the name of orthomolecular nutrition, then orthomolecular medicine. And it's some sort of metabolic correction in a use of functional medicine. So really orthomolecular medicine is a biochemical, physiological, functional approach to health. The key here is that many diseases that we have really seen that has been associated with specific biochemical abnormalities, which are causal or contributing factors of the illness. So we concentrate in balancing these biochemical derangements with nutrients. In terms of one of the important nutrients is vitamin C, and it started out maybe the interest of Dr. Pauling, who was one of the pioneers, was with Dr. Irwin Stone. And Dr. Irwin Stone proposed a concept that we all suffer of subclinical deficiency of vitamin C. And that if we ingest larger amounts, it will help balance our health in general. Dr. Klenner is another physician that used vitamin C. He was the one that started IV vitamin C in the use of against polio. So he had 100% cure of polio using IV vitamin C. And he used vitamin C in various conditions, in colds, in polio, hepatitis, cancer. And he said that if a disease doesn't respond to vitamin C, you're not giving enough high dose. Then came Dr. Linus Pauling to the scene, and Dr. Pauling kind of gave it the push that this new type of therapeutic approach needed. He won 2 Nobel Prizes, and he started a very much interest in vitamin C. And he used vitamin C, and he prepared a paper making a review of how vitamin C has been used in different colds in infectious disease, and he is known basically for cancer. And together with Dr. Abraham Hoffer, he founded orthomolecular medicine.
Fantastic.
In the 50s, Dr. McCormick hypothesized that cancer is due to the vitamin C deficiency. Later in the 50s, Burns saw that mammals were susceptible to scurvy, and they had, especially humans, had a deficient production of the enzyme that converts sugar to vitamin C. So, and then in the 70s, Dr. Cathcart developed the concept of bowel tolerant dose for oral vitamin C. Is that as soon as you get sick, you may need more vitamin C. As animals start to produce more vitamin C when they get sick, since we cannot produce vitamin C, we need to take it orally or IV in order to increase all the necessary molecules, increase the immune system. It's a real modulator of metabolism. He also used vitamin C in infectious disease, toxins, and wound healing. Then Dr. Hickey in the 80s proposed the dynamic flow model for oral ascorbate in order to maintain high levels of vitamin C in blood. In the 70s, Dr. Cameron did the first clinical trials of vitamin C in cancer patients, and then Dr. Pauling collaborated with him and came with very important papers in the 70s. And in the 90s, Dr. Hoffer, who was known for using nutritional vitamin therapies in the treatment of mental illness, schizophrenia, he used it later with cancer and collaborated with Dr. Pauling in the cancer research. Then Dr. Hugh Reardon, who was my main advisor in the Center for the Improvement of Human Functioning in Wichita, Kansas, he took the IV to another level because he was the person with more experience using IV vitamin C for cancer and infectious disease. He was specially recognized for this, and also because he has very creative educational services in that center. In the 90s, Dr. Mark Levine at the National Institute of Health started looking at the pharmacokinetics of vitamin C, and he saw that in cancer, people were using vitamin C in order to get better, and he wrote a series of cases of vitamin C in cancer patients treated by vitamin C with Dr. Hugh Reardon. Then in the 2000s, up there, Dr. Reardon, who's Dr. Hugh's son, it's Neil, Dr. Joseph Casari, Dr. Nina Mikirova, Ron Honninghake, myself, and Dr. Miranda came up with a lot of publications and a lot of studies being how effective was vitamin C against cancer. And vitamin C has been used originally against scurvy, against polio, against infections and poisons, and against heart disease, and against cancer. And there's a lot of publications in these areas. But also now,
Doc Gonzalez, you know, I find that slide to be breathtaking.
You mean this one?
Yeah, I want you to do me a favor.
Sure.
Because what we're proving in China, and beginning with Dr. Peng, who'll be on later, okay?
He's right here. I haven't, this the first man in this photo.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, but that slide, can you go back to that slide? It's right there, right? There, no, there it is, right? We got to add to that slide, COVID-19.
Oh, it's just in another slide. It's right here.
I'm just telling you, I've got chills when I saw that slide because it's 1945 until today. Orthomolecular medicine is saving human lives with no toxic reactions. Unbelievable. And here we are with COVID-19 in China using an American know-how since 1945 to literally save hundreds of thousands of lives, while hundreds of thousands of lives are being lost in the United States where the therapy originated. Now, I'm a China specialist. I'm an American and had my whole life here. My whole life is born of America and global impacts from FM radio to now, thank you, Lord, fighting the tyranny of COVID-19 deaths, okay?
So all these people that I put right here are very important people in terms of generating the necessary information, showing the reality, showing how powerful vitamin C could be in high doses against this virus. Here's Dr. Penn, who was the first one to use IV vitamin C in these type of studies. Dr. Chen has been a fighter, a promoter of vitamin C. Dr. Andrew Soul, myself, Dr. Victor Marcial, Dr. Jorge Miranda, Dr. Ronald Honeyhackey, Dr. Tom Levy, and here's Dr. Paul Merrick and Dr. Alpha Fowler. These people have used IV vitamin C in sepsis in general, but they have been using it now in COVID. Dr. Marcial has been using it in his patients. Tom has also not only vitamin C, he has another protocol, orthomolecular protocol, using, I think it's hydrogen peroxide. Dr. Ron has been treating patients with IV vitamin C. Dr. Miranda wrote a very interesting paper of the effects of vitamin C. I wrote together with Dr. Chang, Sol, Dr. Peng, Dr. Marcial, Dr. Levy, Dr. Ron, and Dr. Miranda. We wrote a paper on all the mechanisms of antiviral mechanisms of vitamin C. So there's enough information out there. And also right now, there's no vaccine, there's no treatment, and we have seen a lot of people recovering in bad shape with IV vitamin C. And the important thing of vitamin C is that it can work in all the pathophysiological effects of this virus. It could work as preventive. It could work early in treatment. It could work even with people that are in bad shape. With all the, it could reduce the cytokine storm, which is probably the main killer with this virus. And it could disturb this corona, these spikes of the virus. Vitamin C may have direct mechanism in doing that. If you have enough of it in blood, it may have a physiological effect once you have enough doses that it may increase not only the effectiveness of your Th1 response, which is a cellular immune response, it could have a response decreasing inflammatory cytokines and also increasing the number and effectiveness of T cells that are the first line of defense against these viruses. And vitamin C has been very important. But one thing we have to have in mind is that the fourth cause of death, it's drug-induced iatrogenia. So it's been people dying by giving them medicine in the hospitals. So if we can reduce this by the use of nutrients like vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, it will be a good improvement. Also, the serious adverse effects are very high. Even the fatal ones, as I mentioned, is the fourth cause of death in the United States. Another issue is that it's very expensive. The drug-related morbidity and mortality, it's a very expensive thing. And it's been increasing even more. It has doubled in 6 years. So imagine how much money it's been wasted and not having good results.
Medicine is about money. Dr. McKee has explained clearly, and I wish he could be with us today. You'll be at the Diana Hamilton show next month.
For preventing this morbidity and mortality are urgently needed, and optimizing the patient management to orthomolecular medicine can improve the drug-related morbidity and mortality. So there's been various achievements as orthomolecular medicine has a major role in prevention and treatment. So we have achievements in cardiovascular disease, reducing homocysteine with vitamins B12, vitamin B6, folic acid, reducing cholesterol with niacin, decreasing diabetes by improving glucose insulin regulation with chromium, vanadium, B complex, lipoic acid, schizophrenia, mental disease, reducing adrenochrome with niacin and ascorbic acid and zinc, achievements in arthritis by reducing cartilage degeneration with glucosamine sulfate, collagen, reducing probably inflammation with turmeric, bromelain, omega-3s, aging, reducing free radicals with antioxidants, and cancer with non-toxic therapy with vitamin C, mitochondrial enhancers, and reducing the use of statins with coenzyme Q10, and many more. So these biochemical metabolic correction of chronic disease by the means of orthomolecular medicine sometimes takes longer time in producing results, but it's usually more long-lasting because it goes directly to the root of the disease, and it's less toxic and it's more cost-effective. Therefore, orthomolecular medicine should be, in general, our first option in medical treatment. And who benefits? Everyone benefits. The individuals benefit because that improves their quality of life, increase productivity. The industry, because medical treatments will be more cost-effective with least adverse effects. and the professional, because you're going to have more medical success, less complications, and less litigation for malpractice. And society, because you'll have a healthier society and a more productive one. And I think it's the time for orthomolecular medicine is now. And I think this COVID issue, it's going to prove that, because it's a non-toxic, low-cost, very effective method of containing the damage of this problematic virus. And that's about all my presentation.
You know, this is our first event on behalf of the foundation in dealing with global markets, provided in this case by the World Leaders Summit, to educate people to understand that they have a direct responsibility and can now start to take action, working with institutions like the Future of Medicine Foundation to stop the ravaging death we're dealing with in Western markets. The applications and the cures are here. And now you're going to begin the process, beginning with Dr. Chang. Next, right underneath my picture, if we're all looking at each other, is Dr. Levy as well. So we're going to transfer now into conversations with Dr. Chang and Dr. Levy. But before I go there, I want everyone to know that in Romania right now, Philip Chobin, he is the top 20 in telemedicine. And he's my cousin. And he's viewing our work right now. And the feedback I'm getting out of him and his nutritionists throughout Eastern Europe is spectacular. Thank you, Gonzalez, from the bottom of my heart. Dr. Chang is the crossover, medical professional. Okay, this is working? Okay, yes. Perfect. Okay, thank you. Please understand that Dr. Chang is not only a PhD and MD out of China, but he's migrated to the United States and he's spent 30 years here and has achieved his multi-PhD life work with as an MD and a PhD in science. Okay, so Dr. Chang literally, in my opinion, is the key that has merged the number one and number two economy on earth to deliver the future of medicine, to return health to humanity, as he puts it. Okay, now I beg you to take the next two presentations by Dr. Chang and Dr. Levy. Take it to heart. Understand the power of what the future of medicine is presenting here. If you know that there are 1.5, 2 million deaths, after these two presentations, you're going to realize that there shouldn't be globally 200,000 deaths. And you can compare this statistically with Dr. Peng and the first clinical trial for COVID on Earth, February 12th, this past year, and the success they've had with preventing death. Okay, so Dr. Chang is going to take over now. Dr. Chang, God bless you. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Jack, for your nice introduction. And also thank you, Arijit, for organizing this wonderful event. And thank you to all my friends and mentors here. Well, I'm going to give a brief overview of my thoughts on this, world reckoning event. But first of all, I made some arrangement. First of all, let's talk about COVID-19. As you know, listening to Jack, I got a little bit passionate, so I want to bring up this slide first. Well, COVID-19 has really panicked. We've been panicking worldwide for a year now, nearly a year. Okay, but let's really look at some data. This is a table that I published on the Journal of Orthomolecular Medicine just recently, and this is a comparison of severity of COVID-19 and influenza. Okay, now the data come from, as you can see here, WHO and the CDC officials. Okay. Now, the measure we use here is what's called infection fatality rate, or IFR. Basically, this simply means that if someone catches COVID-19 virus, viral infection, what is the risk of dying from the disease? And that's one major measure to measure the severity of disease. Now, well, we are not denying that COVID-19 is a serious disease, is a serious pandemic, it has serious consequences. However, let's look at data. Now, because COVID-19 has got the worldwide attention, so we have breakdown of age breakdown groups to compare. Okay, so this is from WHO. Actually from CDC, is that young kids, from 0, the newborn to 19, here you can see the IFR, basically the risk of dying from the disease is 0.003%. As you can read here, okay? Now, for somebody who is in the 20 to 50 or 49 age group, that's 0.2%, and 50 to 69, 0.5%. Above 70, that's 5.4%. The data came from CDC. Now, look at the influenza. Now, since influenza is not a reportable disease, what I'm saying is that we all know for infectious diseases, very serious ones, we have to report to the Disease Control Bureau in every country. In the United States, it's CDC. So, but because it's not a reportable disease, so there is no age breakdown classification. So we don't know the IFR between newborn and 20 and 20 to 50. Okay, so we have a general number, which is less than 0.1%. That's for all age groups, but that's good enough. But if you look at this number, okay, so looking at the IFR of COVID-19 and of influenza, you don't see much difference. That's the point I want to make. Okay, look at the young kids, young people, 0.003% compared to less than 0.1%. You would say, just by looking at these numbers, not very scientific, because we don't know the exact age group here, right? But anyway, the death rate is even smaller in COVID-19 than flu. Okay, at least not much greater. So from this table, you can say that in general, for people maybe up to age 50, the death rate is not much more than influenza. Okay, so this data tells us that COVID-19 is a serious disease. It's a life-threatening disease, but may not be more severe than a bad flu. That's the point I want to make. Every year, every country, we got a lot of people dying of flu, but it's, we usually don't really take that seriously. We don't hear much about it. In the United States, we have probably anywhere between 60 and 80,000 people dying of flu every year. That's one. When we hear about COVID-19 deaths on the news, we also need to pay attention the differences between dying from COVID-19 or dying from diseases, patients dying of diseases also with underlying conditions. We know now that a lot of those people who die from COVID-19 have diabetes, cancer, heart disease, many other chronic diseases, okay? And so anyway, let's not go in there for too much. Basically, the idea is that COVID-19, we have to take it seriously, but it's not as threatening, not as intimidating as what we have been led to believe. That's the message I want to give. Okay, I don't believe certainly that the world needs to panic the way we have been. The world is still paralyzed nearly 1 year after the onset of COVID-19. Now that's the message. Now let's go back to my normal sequence. So what I want to do today actually is look at how come we are here today. Basically, the title here I want to say is that, and then one segment of my talk, I want to make it short here. First of all, I believe we have been mismanaging COVID-19. And that's the main problem. But why is that? Now, I want to point out the two major problems. Okay, the first one is, we know today's medicine, the major thinking in basically the philosophy or the logic behind today's medicine is what we call evidence-based medicine, EBM. Now, nothing wrong with evidence-based. We all need evidence. You know, evidence-based medicine didn't start today, didn't start in the 1990s, has been here for thousands of years. We all based on evidence. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more detail. But there's a problem in today's EBM. Why? Because the evidence, you know, evidence-based medicine depends on evidence. I'm going to present you some preliminary data that actually the evidence is being biased, meaning the evidence may be false, may not be truly accurate. Now, when you don't have truly accurate evidence, how can you arrive at a correct decision? That's a problem. Okay, then number one. Number two is what I call Nobel Prize mentality. Well, I'm going to also discuss a little bit later, is that clinical medicine and the basic science research are two different disciplines. Okay, however, I mean, one cannot replace the other. I'm going to talk a little bit more later. Okay, so these 2 points, let me cover a little bit. Now, first of all, let's talk about evidence medicine. Basically, EBM movement started back in the 1990s. Okay, and the idea is very good, decent, honorable. Basically, we want to define and look for evidence and then find the solutions for patient care. Okay, now make a long story short, there are several different levels of evidence. I mean, what makes up the evidence? Okay, as shown here in the next this slide here. Basically, evidence medicine, you know, requires, you know, as we all know, so-called randomized controlled trial, RCT, so to speak. Okay, that's a major part, because whether something works or not, well, do some comparison. But the point I want to make out here is that RCT is not the only part of the evidence. In the true evidence-based medicine, also doctors' experience has a heavy place, has a very important place in decision-making as part of evidence. Also, the logical thinking. Because of A, because of B, therefore, we do C. Okay, so evidence-based medicine is that for a physician, you need to integrate all the knowledge you have learned, along with your own experience and your logical thinking, and also patient's condition. Not only patient's medical, physical condition, but also maybe financial, psychological condition. Therefore, the point I'm making here is that it is an integrative solution, a holistic view of a patient care. But you know what? You know, like most people probably, I would say here, not many doctors really truly looked into the definition of EBM, evidence-based. I didn't, I'm telling you. I did not know what exactly EBM was before this. Okay, so when I talked to, like Dr. Gonzalez presented earlier, actually, when I talk to my other people, I mean, my friends, you know, doctor, scientist friends about the vitamin C, they all ask, oh, do you have RCTs? Yes, I do, I said. You know, that the point I'm making here is that most of the doctors, scientists don't quite understand what EBM is. They all think EBM equals RCT. That's a major problem. EBM is not only RCT. Okay, so that's number one. And second, I want to say a little bit more important here. I think somebody already mentioned, maybe Dr. Gunnar already mentioned, is that the problem with evidence today is that the bullet point number 2 I want to point out here is that EBM relies heavily on evidence, but there's very little room for mechanistic reasoning, or we call logic or common sense. Actually, we're going to talk about vitamin C as a clear example of this. You know, mechanistic reasoning or logic or common sense basically is in the same line of you know, drawing reasonable logical conclusion from the evidence. And EVM doesn't allow very much for that. Okay. And also very importantly is that today we all know RCTs are getting more and more expensive to run. Okay. Therefore, it takes a lot of money, a lot of manpower. Only the rich organizations have the deep pockets to run RCTs. And there are fewer and fewer RCTs that are funded by the non-profit organizations and government, because those, government and non-NGO organizations are truly probably, because they are not supposed to care for profit. Their job is to care for the public health. But private for-profit organizations, I don't blame them. Okay, when you invest millions and millions of dollars, you like to make an investment return. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, but because of this, so the for-profit companies will only invest in projects that can take a profit. Nutrition, lifestyle, these important factors in our medicine and healthcare, because we cannot patent these methods. We cannot patent vitamin C. We cannot patent, any dietary methods. Therefore, there's little or no interest in funding these kind of RCTs. Okay, and as a result, what makes up the evidence is more and more diluted by the for-profit evidence companies funded or evidence. That's the major problem here. Let me show you some data here. For example, back in 2015, Johns Hopkins University did some studies showing that between 2006 and 2014, NIH, which, as we all know, is the U.S. government organization, NIH funded RCTs decreased by 1/4, 24%. Okay. At the same time, for-profit companies funded RCTs increased 43%, nearly half of it. Okay. Now, this is about like 8 years span, 8-9 years span. So basically, from this data, you can see that more and more data that makes up the evidence comes from for-profit companies, and therefore these being more and more influenced by certain for-profit, certain parts, not the whole spectrum of the important factors in health and disease prevention. That's one. And also, and we already mentioned it, the for-profit companies, there's really no financial interest to invest or run RCTs on topics that are of public health interest, like nutrition, lifestyle. I already mentioned that. Also, another one, very importantly, is that the same research by Johns Hopkins University back in 2015 showed that in the important journals, 1,500 cancer papers on major journals, again, in the year, there's a lot more cancer papers than 1,500, believe me, okay? These are only major journals. 1/3 of those papers, there exists severe conflict of interest, meaning the funding, okay? So because of this, those cancer papers, the data generated from these papers may not truly reflect the scientific nature of cancer. That's another way, another reason why the data is being biased. Okay. Thirdly, I want to say is, the money, no matter how rich some companies, the financial resources is limited. However, about 70% of new drugs approved by FDA are Me Too drugs, meaning they are just, similar to other drugs. Are they important? They are important, but they don't really offer any new advantage to humanity. In a way, that kind of precious money could be better spent in some other more innovative research. But anyway, what I'm saying is it's wasted. Okay. So this is the reality. Why? Because this is how the world works. We give companies patents, and the companies go for, follow the money, and the money is the grease, is the lubricant of the machinery that operates in this world. Now, so from these data, briefly, we can say highly likely the evidence that makes up the EBM is biased. Now, that's a major problem, okay? We need to somehow fix it. Hopefully the world will wake up to this and fix it. Now, second, what I mentioned was the Nobel Prize mentality. Now, what does that mean? Let's look at data. This is a over 100 years Nobel prizes awarded over 100 years, okay? Now look at the data at the early part, back in 1901 to 1910. There's one decade per bar. You see about 2/3 to 90% of the Nobel prizes were awarded to clinicians early on, 100 years ago. Okay, so this was truly clinical medicine oriented. But look at the curve gradually over to today, about 10 years ago. We have only about 20% of Nobel prizes awarded to clinicians. What does this mean? This means that the whole medical science, basic and clinical, have been cleaning towards more and more towards basic research. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, now this is fact. Let's take a look at it. Nothing wrong with it. However, the point I'm making here is that we all know basic science and clinical medicine are two totally different disciplines. In basic research, what we need to do is to dissect and separate complex big problems into smaller questions. And then hopefully we control the other factors and study one moving part. Because when you have too many moving parts, you don't know what's causing what, right? So that's the research method. We want to control as many. That's called a randomized double control, right? But in clinical, basic research, you want to focus one small area, for example, one molecule, one mechanism, one cell. That's what basic research is supposed to do. But in clinical medicine, it's the opposite. I'm a clinician. I also have extensive training and experience in basic research. I understand both sides. As Jack graciously introduced me. So in clinical medicine, we need to integrate all the best research evidence existing and then put them together and use our logical thinking and common sense and also compassionate of a patient, empathy, to arrive at a clinical decision that's best for the patient. Everybody is different. Every patient is a little bit different. You have a general guideline, but that's called individualized medicine. So basically, clinical research and basic research are two directions. Okay, but today, why look at our world? We all know, for most of Nobel Prize. So in medicine, in science, people all strive to work hard to. Not everybody does research for the purpose of Nobel Prize, but we publish papers so that we can get promoted, get a full professorship, and we publish paper, we get grants, grant money, and so the whole system in clinical medicine is depending on the publications, and the publications mostly on basic research because basic research is being encouraged. Okay. Now, these doctors were very good scientists. Eventually, were ascended to the top of the echelon, medical echelon. So these are the doctors who will make up the guidelines, who will write guidelines, tell other doctors how to practice medicine. But unfortunately, many of these doctors probably don't really see patients these days. So those who write clinical guidelines don't see patients. And those who treat patients don't get to write the guidelines. And that's a major problem here, is that we should not use basic science research mentality in clinical application. And that's a major problem today. Now, based on that, for example, today, in the United States in particular, we all know, for example, overweight is a serious problem, obesity. You often see diabetic doctors, endocrinologists, and heart disease, cardiologists, heart doctors, they look at the patients, they fine tune the heart drugs or diabetic drugs or blood pressure medicines, but they practically ignore the obesity. Why? That's because obesity is hard to treat. It takes a holistic view. Okay, and so no matter how you fine tune those drugs, if you don't really get very good excellent clinical results. But if these patients lose 30 pounds, 50 pounds, you know what? Many of those clinical conditions will improve. I've done many. I have helped many patients to go off diabetic medicines, blood pressure medicines. Why? Because we need to look at the root causes of these problems. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more later. And here, I believe that Mr. Nobel, when he established the Nobel Prize, I don't think that's what he intended for today's Nobel Prize for medicine. Okay. Now, here I want to introduce you integrative medicine. Basically, today we have what we call complementary alternative medicine in the United States, so-called CAM. And there's anti-aging medicine, Dr. Gonzalez mentioned, also molecular medicine, integrative medicine, functional medicine, natural medicine, many other sort of medicines. Why are there these medicine branches or different thinkings? Because we know that traditional medicine, the Western medicine of today, doesn't really work well. And if you analyze, basically, this is my summary of the common highlights of these medicines, is that we need to have a holistic view of health and disease. We need to have a natural view of health and disease. We need to have a balanced view of health diseases. Holistic view, I already mentioned a little bit earlier. You cannot just focus on heart or sugar. You need to look at the whole body. A natural view, let me use a simple analogy here. It's very easy to understand. For example, if I drive a Honda car and the Honda car breaks down and you need a new part. And when you're ready to put in a new part of Honda, and here comes a Mercedes-Benz salesperson, and he tells you, hey, come on, let's use some. Your Honda part is just too general and too casual, too cheap. Here I have a patented, state-of-the-art, heart of the press, fancy part. You should use this one. Would you use a Benz part for your Honda car? Obviously, common sense says no. Why? It will not fit in your Honda car. That's the same thing today. That's the natural view. Let me ask you, for those people in the audience, if you are healthy, think about it. What makes you healthy? Is it drugs? Or is it the healthy lifestyle, the proper nutrition that you're eating and exercise, all these things? So we're healthy not because we're on drugs. Most of the drugs, by definition, they are foreign to our body. They are not natural to our body. When we put something unnatural into your system, you don't know what's going to happen down the road. And that's my natural view of health and disease. I'm not saying here again that medicines don't have a part in medicine, but what I'm saying is we have to be careful of medicines. Okay. Now, my view of handling health and diseases is this: we know all diseases have root causes listed on the left panel, 1 and 2. You have external causes, for example, toxins, chemicals, physical, biological factors. COVID-19 virus is a biological factor. So it is a root cause, COVID-19. However, we already presented a root cause. COVID-19 virus alone is not going to cause you all the problems. You need other compounding factors. But also you have internal factors: unhealthy lifestyle, stress, sleep, exercise, nutrition, hormonal imbalance, and the genes. Now, what I also separate here is that genetics, you cannot change your genes. Okay, I'm not going to go into detail. These internal and external factors will go through a set of processes. I want to highlight here oxidative stress, number 1 here listed here. Mitochondrial dysfunction, leaky gut, dysbiosis, genetic mutation, and telomere shortage, all these other problems. I already highlighted the oxidative stress, because why? That's one major reason why COVID-19 is so bad. Because COVID-19 causes, we all know, COVID-19 causes cytokine storm. In essence, it is oxidative stress. Vitamin C is so powerful. Why? Because vitamin C is the prototype of antioxidants. It can neutralize, it can reduce the oxidative stress caused by virus, COVID-19 virus, and many others. Of course, I'm going to talk a little bit more. You need to use high dose and early on in combination with other antioxidants and some natural, other antiviral agents. Okay, so here you have root causes, processes. Eventually, these factors cause disease symptoms: cancer, diabetes, COVID-19, pneumonia, Alzheimer's, depression, autoimmune diseases. These are the clinical manifestations. These are due to 1, 2, and 3. Do we need to treat the symptoms of these number 4? Of course. But today's medicine, we mostly focus on number 4. We all know common sense tells us if we don't root out the root causes, if we don't correct the processes, we're not going to have a fundamental cure of manifestation. So all diseases, we need to go through this process. And as we have, Jack is an expert in business. A business solution, the same thing. This is a common sense. It's not new. We all know, not only medicine, in worldwide problems today. That's how we should do. Unfortunately, what I want to say is, in medicine, we forgot about this. Fancy, high-ranking doctors forget about this. We don't have common sense in medicine today. Okay, I'm going to go through this quickly. Because we all know here's some of the research data here is that increased oxidative stress is a universal observation in viral respiratory infections. There's an excellent review article published 2 years ago, 2018, and it reviews all, actually it happens in all viral infections, okay? And Tom Levy is an expert, he's my mentor, he can tell you more. I don't know if he's gonna touch that today or not. But anyway, today I only focus, here, this slide only focuses on the pulmonary part. Why? Because COVID-19 is largely a pulmonary problem. Of course, it affects the whole world, whole body. Basically, it shows here that all the viral infections that cause pneumonia have increased oxidative stress as an underlying mechanism. Why should COVID-19 be different? Of course, now, this paper I presented was earlier this year when we didn't have a lot of evidence. Now we know increased evidence, increased oxidative stress is a hallmark. Actually, it is probably more so than other viruses that cause pneumonia. Okay. And here's again, that's some of the earlier papers, increased oxidative stress, cytokine storm, underlying acute lung injury, acute respiratory distress syndrome. Okay. And at the bottom, at the number 4 reference, I called for worldwide, as well as in March, to use high dose and early intervention with high dose vitamin C. If we did, I think today's world would be quite different. Now, I'm not going to go into the detail, but except to say that, again, here, the septic shock, ventilation, ARDS, ARI, these are the key pathologies of COVID-19. And the vitamin C is a key finding of vitamin C deficiency is a key finding of ICU patients. And we know many of them. For example, here we show for nearly half of ICU patients with septic shock have basically no vitamin C in their blood. Okay, and also you can see here, actually back in September, I believe, there's a study from Spain. They studied 18 COVID-19 patients. 17 of them have zero non-detectable vitamin C in their blood. Okay, vitamin C deficiency is common in severe diseases, particularly in patients with infections, in septic shocks. Okay, and here some research shows the high dose vitamin C prevents and improves pneumonia. These are slides I presented at NIH at the invited lecture, April. That was more than 6 months ago. If we applied what I'm talking today here, lots of data. Anybody who says there's no data to support vitamin C is basically turns a blind eye to these. Lots of information here. And Dr. Gonzalez presented here. I'm giving you more and more data, and Tom Levy will be presenting even more. Look at 148 clinical animal studies and a lot of RCTs showing vitamin C's effects biologically and clinically. Okay, and here high dose vitamin C shortens mechanical ventilation, and here high dose vitamin C prevents multi-organ failure, and here high dose vitamin C reduces ARDS mortality. And here, one of the largest studies published recently by Dr. Fowler's group, that high dose vitamin C, actually that dose, in our view, actually is still small. Okay. One summary statement then. I mean,
okay, make a summary statement and then.
So basically, I'm gonna show the audience that NIH put out a document. This is official. The high dose vitamin C, IV vitamin C is safe up to 1.5 grams per kilogram, basically 1,500 milligram of vitamin C per kilogram body weight IV. For somebody who's 60 kilogram body weight, that's 90 grams or 90,000 milligram of vitamin C a day. That is safe. This statement comes from NIH, not from me, not from anybody else. So from that, okay, listen, let me finish. The vitamin C, high dose vitamin C is safe, and I showed you some evidence. I didn't show you all. Vitamin C appears to be effective, and vitamin C is readily available everywhere worldwide and inexpensive. Why in the hell we don't use it? That's the question I'm asking. Where is the common sense? All right, that's it.
Tom is also a member of the Orthomolecular Medicine Hall of Fame. He is the author of Curing the Incurable, Vitamin C, Infectious Diseases and Toxins, and many other books. I'm going to show you, Tom's focus will be, how can I cure thee? Let me count the way. This presentation this morning will cover that topic. What you're looking at is the front page of the foundation, and the books you're looking at right here, and there's Dr. Levy, and in the center are the Chinese books published by Dr. Chang. Okay. When we talk about the future of medicine, we talk about returning health to humanity. I beg all of you to appreciate the fact that you are being introduced to the world's leading physicians in the field of saving human lives, especially from a coronavirus perspective, on the face of the earth. And Tom, hopefully I can get out of this. Okay, there we go. Tom, thank you very much for addressing this audience. And Phil Chobin, thank you. And all the people that have sent texts to us applauding Dr. Chang, Dr. Gonzalez. I can't wait till you hear what Dr. Tom Levy and what Dr. Peng will be bringing to you in the next 45 minutes.
What I want to briefly touch upon, although I think it's incredibly important, not reflected by the amount of time we're taking, is that COVID is just another virus, okay? Now, early on, COVID killed more people than it's killing now. And interestingly enough, that's one thing I'd like to add to what Dr. Chang said is it's still as contagious as it ever was, whether you want to get into false positive or false negative tests. But what's present now is almost a year later, we have a ton more people in the States and around the world, largely due to the efforts of the Orthomolecular Medicine News Service, taking vitamin C, taking vitamin D, taking zinc, taking magnesium. Shortly after this pandemic started, due to the work of Dr. Andrew Saul, just about all the vitamin C disappeared off the shelves. of Walmart, drugstores, vitamin shops, etc. So the fact of the matter is one thing you can't get around, in my opinion, is that this is highly contagious. That they have. It's highly contagious. Lots of people get it, but now lots of people are through with it in a few days. And that's not because the virus has mutated or anything like that. It's because there's been an enormous amount of education on vitamin C since February. And if anything, not that you want to talk about a pandemic being good in any way, but that's the silver lining of this pandemic, is it has brought vitamin C and orthomolecular medicine into a focus that it's never had before. Now, just a few quick words about a virus. It's not technically alive. It feeds off of other cells. It's basically gets into a cell and starts replicating its RNA or DNA. Also important to note that viruses are very tiny. So when you have a red blood cell, 6 to 8,000 nanometers, a virus might be 20 to 50 to even 500. So just to get a perspective of size. I'm going a little quick. There's a few more slides here. And what we're talking about here are viral transmissions from the respiratory tract. You have ways you can get a virus, blood, bodily secretions, etc., transmitted by the gut, transmitted sexually. This is basically, and this statistically is the most important part of viral transmission, is most of the significant viruses that you get that are of major impact on your health are transmitted by inhalation, by respiration. Then they colonize in the aerodigestive tract, nose, pharynx, lungs, and then propagate. Now, just a fine point, and this is the basis of why some of the drugs that came out early on were so effective. And let me say that hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine are highly effective in spite of the incredible propaganda campaign that was launched against them. And I'm not going to get into the politics of this pandemic, except to say there's no way to separate the medicine from the politics in this pandemic. And that's what we're trying to do here, is tell you there are simple, easy, multiple cures for this. And you figure out for yourself why the governments and the medical establishment per se is doing what it's doing. So you have an enzyme that helps replicate the cell's RNA, the virus's RNA and DNA inside the cell. And what's very important is intracellular zinc is vital to the activity of this enzyme. But zinc supplements by themselves don't do a lot of good because they're ionic and they don't transport well into the cell. So you have drugs and nutrients, not just drugs, that have what's called ionophore properties. This means they'll bind an ion like zinc and transport it into the cell. So when you have an agent that will bind and transport zinc into the cell, along with taking more zinc, you have right there a very powerful general antiviral mechanism, and not just specifically for COVID. So as I mentioned, these are hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine. There are many others that have ionophore ability, but these are the two prominent ones. And probably the best known and most effective non-prescription ionophore for zinc is quercetin, a bioflavonoid. The important concepts of virus and virus contraction you have to remember. You can get into, I'm not even going to get into the validity of masks and stuff like that, but it all has to do with how concentrated your virus exposure is, what's the total content of the virus exposure, and then what's the inherent strength of your immune system. All three of these things are basically what determines when you're exposed to a virus, whether you contract it or not. Interesting thing on symptoms of COVID, a lot of the traditional flu-like symptoms, but very interestingly, a loss of smell, taste, and appetite. And in the Chinese population early on, there's a lot of diarrhea and digestive related symptoms. And this is because what do you do when you have an acute fulminant viral infection replicating in your nose, throat, and airways? You're continuing to swallow that virus, literally swallow the virus. And as you swallow the virus and the toxic byproducts that come from it, what do you get? You get diarrhea and digestive related symptoms. And then, of course, as Dr. Chang pointed out, we have the shortness of breath, the most dire of symptoms, and a unique, somewhat unique ability of COVID to cause an incredibly greater oxidative stress called the cytokine storm than is usually seen with viral infections. And this is early on, at least, why many people died so quickly. As I mentioned before, I think a lot of people are just having much shorter courses of symptoms because they've been scared to death by this since February. They've been pouring online since February, and it's impossible to look at this and go online and not come to the conclusion that vitamin C, vitamin D, magnesium, and zinc are going to play a huge role in not only preventing this, but in minimizing its clinical impact. Now, this is not a comprehensive list, but as I mentioned, these are preventive therapies, and when you increase the degree of prevention in the therapy, then you get a treatment therapy. Vitamin C, as I mentioned, ozone. Ozone is phenomenal. The only downside of ozone is access, okay? But if you're a patient with an ozone using doctor, by all means get that. Along similar lines, ultraviolet blood irradiation, and this I'm going to talk about quite a bit, hydrogen peroxide applications. Now, and this was alluded to as well. Remember that with any sort of viral infection, you rapidly consume vitamin C. So even if for the sake of argument, you didn't want to, for whatever reason, to give the patient vitamin C to treat their condition, you should still give it to them to treat the acute vitamin C depletion that this infection has caused. And believe me, it causes it all the time. Nutrition, of course, is important. So a basic overall protocol approach is what I call my multi-C protocol. That's where if you have availability, you take liposome oral, you take IV, you take a fat-soluble form called ascorbyl palmitate, anything to get vitamin C ultimately inside the cell. That's your target. Nebulization with hydrogen peroxide. This is not inhaling disinfectant. This is not Lysol. This is not bleach, but I'll get into that in a moment. Magnesium and zinc, hydration, good nutrition, and the vitamin C. Now, ultimately, you're looking to get vitamin C inside the cell. That's the target. When you have completely normal levels of vitamin C, zinc, magnesium, and calcium inside your cells, you have a healthy cell. It doesn't matter what else is going on. So that's the goal. Now, just a quick suggested regimen for prevention: vitamin C, 6 to 8 grams a day, magnesium supplementation up to 1 gram a day. And if you have it, get a hold of, it's very cheap and very common, magnesium chloride, because even though we know from Dr. Klenner's work that he was able to cure polio with IV vitamin C, guess what? Oral magnesium chloride solution by itself has really been just as effective in curing polio as well. So it's a very potent antiviral form of magnesium. Vitamin D and zinc, you initially take very high doses if you haven't been taking them, but then you come down to a maintenance dose quickly because they do have toxicity if you take too much. Any other quality supplements, and the peroxide nebulization that I'm going to talk about. So most important things in vitamin C therapy and these other things as well are dose, frequency of administration. It does you good, but not as much good if you get your blood level up at point A, but then the blood level goes down for the rest of the day and you don't have a high blood level until the next day. So frequent dosing and then the form. This was something that Dr. Gonzalez published, just a good demonstration of the fact that IV vitamin C readily cures influenza. This also was the work of Dr. Marek. IV vitamin C in fairly small doses prevents the fatality of sepsis. Zika fever, which we're all left to believe has no cure, was very easily cured again by our good Dr. Gonzalez with high dose intravenous vitamin C treatment. But you know something? I got to tell you, we have a little nomenclature problem here. I would contest, and this is not picking on Dr. Gonzalez, this is in the literature. I don't think you should say high dose intravenous vitamin C. I think you should say appropriately dosed IV vitamin C. Because in fact, when you understand the physiology of vitamin C and the needs that you have for it in the body, you need multi-gram doses on a daily basis. And when you have an infection, you need much higher doses. Ebola also has been easily cured. This was by Dr. Rowan. He went to Sierra Leone in 2016, and using ozone along with a little vitamin C, he quickly cured 4 of the native people there of their Ebola infection. So vitamin D has turned out to be extremely important as a preventive agent. Massively drops mortality when you get the levels in the normal range, and massively decreases morbidity. Zinc I mentioned, quercetin I mentioned. Magnesium chloride. Dexamethasone, well really any steroid in an acute infection, when you are also giving vitamin C, guess what corticosteroids do? They increase the intracellular uptake of vitamin C. So these are 2 synergistic elements. And this is why, whether you're supplementing vitamin C or not, steroids have such a powerful acute effect, is whatever vitamin C they do have, they're pushing inside the cell. Same thing with budesonide when you inhale it. Now, this can, should, and I hope will end the pandemic, okay? There are a lot of things that cure COVID. There is ozone. There is vitamin C high dose. There is a number of other therapies, but it's access and expense in involving a doctor. What do we have that can readily cure COVID or any other respiratory virus, cost inconsequential money, have access around the world, not require the prescription of a doctor, not require the administration by a doctor, and can be administered by the patient, and is absolutely non-toxic, only producing byproducts that are beneficial to your body, namely water and oxygen. And that's hydrogen peroxide nebulization. I maintain it's a foundational baseline therapy, and something we won't have time to go into. I'll also tell you that at the same time you're knocking out virus in your respiratory tract, you're healing your gut, because all the pathogens in your mouth, nose, and throat that you swallow is the primary reason for virtually all digestive disorders you have today, including leaky gut, which then impacts the rest of the body. I'm in the process of writing a book on this right now. I'll have all the literature cited. Hopefully it can help get hydrogen peroxide kickstarted around the world. Now, peroxide is an all-purpose antibiotic made in the body. It's non-ionic, and contrary to popular opinion, it's not unstable. It's very stable, except in the microenvironment of transition metals. So it's small, it's produced by the body, it gets inside the cells very easily, and when you put it in the presence of iron and vitamin C, you produce hydroxyl radical and kill the pathogen very quickly. We know externally it kills all these pathogens. Well, internally it does it as well. And this is what I mentioned. Bear this in mind. How many agents of any kind, nutrient, pharmacological, prescription, not only do not produce any metabolic toxic byproducts, but produce the 2 most important agents to sustain health. What are those two most important agents? They're water and oxygen. That's all hydrogen peroxide leaves behind after it kills the pathogen. So effectively, it hydrates the tissue and it oxygenates the tissue, which is the best two things you can have to heal a tissue that you've just killed the pathogens in, so it could heal completely. Peroxide will release a lot of oxygen. And in many ways, the more peroxide you get in your system, the more you have oxygen immediately available for other uses. It's an oxygen storing agent. Look at this. It's naturally present in the exhaled breath. And when you have infection present, there's more of it in the exhaled breath. That means the cells that in the airways of the lungs naturally secrete hydrogen peroxide to coat the airways and prevent you from contracting the new pathogens that you inhale with every breath. So all you're doing with hydrogen peroxide nebulization, inhalation, is you're directly killing the pathogens and you're augmenting the natural response of the body trying to kill the pathogen on its own. So when you knock out the viral proliferation in the sinus, nose, throat, and airways, which you can do extremely quickly, this is not a prolonged treatment, you effectively chop the head off the viral snake. And then all that's left is for the body to mop up the virus elsewhere. And this is where vitamin C is the perfect co-treatment with hydrogen peroxide. Again, vitamin C suffers relative to peroxide from not having the cheapness and the availability and the need for a doctor in order to be given. But if you have it available and you can get it, and there's a doctor that'll give it to you, absolutely do both. Hydrogen peroxide nebulization and vitamin C intravenously. And it's impossible for you not to get better quickly. Let me just put it that way. So I mentioned this, it augments the body's natural production, delivers it where it's needed most in the lungs, non-toxic, hydrates and oxygenates. I also mentioned it impacts this abnormal colonization of bugs throughout the body, which is called chronic pathogen colonization. We all have it indefinitely after we've had a cold or flu and gotten over it, because biofilms are created that antibiotics cannot penetrate. So unless you do something to specifically knock it out, you'll have it for life. And this is what peroxide nebulization does as well. It not only gets rid of an acute viral infection like COVID, it also gets rid of the bacteria, virus, protozoa, you name it, chronic pathogen colonization that so many people have in their sinuses, nasal, oropharynx, deep in the throat and in the lungs. Also the tongue, the worst source of stored pathogens there is, because so few people clean their tongue. I mean, you go garden and you get your hands dirty, you wash your hands. If you don't, they stay dirty for life. Same thing with the tongue. You have a lot of embedded pathogens and foodstuffs in there. If you don't take specific measures, you're going to swallow pathogens and toxins the rest of your life and keep that constipation, diarrhea, upset stomach that you've just regarded as inevitable and normal. So nebulization, you just inhale it. So cure resolution, attack the virus already in the body, high dose vitamin C. If you have it orally, liposome encapsulated, and then the peroxide nebulization, something I've worked with a lot, a second line of defense, DMSO vitamin C, magnesium chloride nebulization. And finally, prevention. My goodness, for the longest time, I'd get on a plane and I'd be so upset because I'd end up sick by the time I got off the plane. Well, you have little tiny handheld nebulizers. You could have a vial of 3 or 4 cc's of peroxide in your carry-on. And once every hour or two, if people are coughing around you, you go inside the lavatory and nebulize for 2 or 3 minutes, and there's just no way you're going to get sick. This is what one looks like. They also have larger tabletop bottles. And so finally, this is my website, peakenergy.com. I invite questions from anybody around the world. This is the same email I've had for almost 20 years now. I don't do consultations, but I can answer questions and help direct people toward resources for more information, and sometimes to specific physicians that can treat them, but I can't do any treating and I can't do any direct advising on treatment. So there you go. Thank you very much.
Super, super, super. Thank you so much. But yes, I'll give a comment, a small comment from a how do I define myself? Unknowledgeable person. That's a new English. So like, if you take, so
You're beautiful.
if you take a lemon in the morning, approximate 3 to 4 lemons, that consists a lot of vitamin C, probably a few bit of ginger, which consists a lot of zinc, and probably some honey, and work out well, sleep well, and eat a balanced diet. I want to ask you, Dr. Levy, before you know turn off your presentation, because I wanted to ask the same to Dr. Richard, probably a couple of others, but because it's a huge panel you are doing, I'm not asking, but I can't restrain myself. Maybe you can answer me after the whole panel. Just a small question. For a human body to enhance the metabolism, enhance the normal nutrition level, and become more immune to these virus, as per my understanding, virus you cannot kill. It always stays back. It always stays back. That's my small understanding. Bacteria probably you can kill. So what is your suggestion to humankind to probably follow simple rules in life so that they don't get sick easily? But that's the answer. Probably we'll have. Yeah, probably we'll have after the panel. Thank you, Richard, for the kind words. Please continue.
It's important for us to understand that for the most part, the entire human population share a genetic deficiency. And that is the 4th enzyme in a 4-enzyme sequence in the liver that allows you to normally synthesize vitamin C from glucose. Most of the wild animals have that. But since we share this defect with nearly everybody, we consider the shared bad health that we have and our need for prescription medications as part of normalcy. We consider good health, feeling fine, since our symptoms have been suppressed with 4 or 5 different prescription drugs. That's not health. And the reason you don't have that is because unless you compensate for this genetic defect by supplementing large amounts of vitamin C, you're never going to reach optimal health. You can reach some degree of health. You can reach a minimal requirement of prescription drugs, but you're not going to be headache-free, chest pain-free, high energy, clear-headed, etc. Vitamin C is literally, not figuratively, the fuel on which every cell in the body runs. We all run on electrons, and vitamin C is the primary donor, not the only donor, the primary donor of electrons that keeps the whole body machine optimized and purring along. So absolutely eat a great diet, but don't delude yourself for a second that having a great diet or 60 lemons in a glass of water is going to give you the vitamin C that you need.
It's ridiculous. You guys are seeing a very artistic view of Dr. Peng, okay, MD, PhD. He's the director of the world's first randomized high-dose intravenous vitamin C clinical trial. And I don't know that he would be working with an American foundation known as the Future of Medicine unless I spent 23 years living and building a new economy and pioneering to establish the number 2 economy on earth, China, since 1985. It's 35 years of dedication of taking one of the poorest countries in the world, suffering literally 100 years of humiliation and famine. And my mother made sure we prayed for China every morning since I was 6 years old at breakfast. And so today, the miracle of my family prayer and the families around the world that understood what China was suffering, really, I can tell you, is a saving grace to the ends of delivering an ideal to humanity through Dr. Peng in Wuhan, China. Now imagine that the coronavirus supposedly, comes out of Wuhan, okay? So if Chinese culture is correct, the yin and yang, the dynamic of the culture, the world, heaven, the universe would insist that if the pandemic was delivered out of Wuhan, then the solution to the problem would be delivered out of Wuhan. Most people in the world can't figure that out. Why? They're not educated or culturally sophisticated to appreciate that. But I can tell you one thing, in India, they surely are. And across Eastern Europe, they surely are. Okay. And that's our largest audience here today. So Dr. Peng is going to discuss insights into the first clinical trial and the reason for the foundation. Very important you hear this. I beg you to hear this. The reason for the foundation is to underwrite the final 300 clinical trials necessary with the vitamin C application, which Dr. Teng is going to share with you. So get into the website, thefutureofmedicine.org, thefutureofmedicinefoundation.org, and appreciate that our entire focus is the clinical trials that will deliver the future of medicine and healing your families, your grandparents, your children, and yourselves. Dr. Peng?
So today, I will talk about the high-dose vitamin C used in the COVID-19 patients. So can you see the?
Yes.
Can you see?
Okay, yes, we see everything.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So first, I will briefly talk about the general features of the COVID-19 patients. So this is our first report in our COVID-19 patients published in the JAMA, and you can see almost all the patients were middle-aged or elderly patients, and all complicated with the comorbidities such as the hypertension, diabetes. And for the critical ill patients in the ICU, they were relatively older and with much more comorbidities. And the most common symptoms for the COVID-19 patients is the fever, fatigue, cough, myalgia, and dyspnea. And about 10% of the patients presented initially with the untypical symptoms such as diarrhea, abdominal pain. And this is the critical process for the COVID-19 patients. The timing from the first symptom to dyspnea around 5 days, to the hospital admission around 7 days, to the ARDS around 9 days or around 8 days. So this is a typical lab test for the COVID-19 patients. All the patients had lymphopenia and elevated LDH. This is a typical chest CT for the COVID-19 patients. You can see the typical glass opacity in the patients. And this is the features of the patient in the ICU. You can see actually the aperture score and SOFA score were not so high compared to other critical ill patients. However, the PFO ratio, the oxygen index is quite low, means most of the patients had severe ARDS. So this is about the patients in the ICU. Except the ARDS, they also complicated with the cardiac injury and acute head injury. So around half of the patients in the ICU requiring intubation, and some of them switched to ECMO. So this is about the pathophysiology of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. They also the main target for the virus is the epithelial cell and the endothelial cells. Epithelial cells injured will do the ARDS, and the endothelial cell was injured and will induce will induce the platelet activation, and will induce the microvascular ambulances, and also will induce the inflammatory response and induce the multiple organ failure, such as the the heart injury, the lung, the kidney injury, and the liver injury. So for the severe patients, some patients complicated with the cytokine storm and then induce the multiple organ failure, such as the liver and cardiac and the renal failure. So next, I will briefly talk about the effects of vitamin C in the critical ill patients. So actually, in the early 1990s, and some trials did in the South Korea soldiers, and they used to compare the oral vitamin C with the placebo, and to see how the oral vitamin C can prevent cold for the soldiers, and they found they can decrease almost 20% of the instance of the cold in the soldiers with oral vitamin C. And also the lot of study about the oral vitamin C reduces the duration of the cold and the symptoms of the cold. This is all from the published the trials, either in the adults or in the child. And also for the high dose vitamin C, what means high dose vitamin C? It is they use around 6 grams per day, and there are a lot of study about the high dose vitamin C use for the prevention of the cold, and also the beneficial effects. And also they also concerned about the potential side effects of the high dose vitamin C, and actually they have no such significant side effects for the high dose vitamin C. Occasionally they have the renal disorders, such as the renal stones happened with the high dose vitamin C. Of course, we should check the GWPD. If the GWPD deficiency, which we couldn't use the high dose vitamin C for the patients, and also if the patients have the hemochromatosis, and also we won't use the vitamin C for the patients. And also they compare the different dosage of the vitamin C on the safety issue, and they use the high dose is used 1 gram per gram. This is a very high dosage for the patients, and also even such high dose vitamin C, they didn't find any significant side effects in the patients. And also for why the vitamin C can prevent cold, can decrease the duration of the cold, because the vitamin C was showed they can kill the viruses, because the hydrogen peroxide production from the vitamin C can kill the virus. So this is the main effects, and also they can have the immunomodulation effects, such as the increase the neutrophil phagocytosis and the chemotaxis, and also can increase the macrophage migration, affect the production of the interferon, and also enhance the T cell function, enhance the NK cell function. So this is all the for the why the vitamin C can prevent the cold, can prevent pneumonia, and also because for the patients with ARDS, they also complicated with the increased oxidative stress, and also with the cytokine storm. And the vitamin C vitamin C have the anti-oxidative effects, so can can treat the ARDS using with the antioxidative effects, and also can reduce the cytokine level, so can improve the symptoms of the ARDS. And also for the critical ill patients, the vitamin C deficiency occurred in such of the patients because a lot of study shows such as the shock, such as the sepsis, such as the very severe patients, the vitamin C deficiency always occurred. And also the lot study shows the high dose vitamin C prevent and improve the pneumonia. So this is from the trials published in the journals. And also the vitamin C was shown to shorten the timing of the mechanical ventilation. So this is the meta-analysis from the published trial, which shows the vitamin C can reduce the evolution of the mechanical ventilation. So this is from the published trials. And also high dose vitamin C prevent multiple organ failure from the study in the 2014. And also the high dose vitamin C reduce the ARDS mortality from the published trials. So they have different studies. The early study published in the 1989, the recent study published in the 2016, all shows that vitamin C can or the vitamin C combined with the thiamine, combined with the zinc, can reduce the mortality of the ARDS patients. And this is the large trials, which is called Citrus ARE trials. It's the multi-center trial just published 2 years ago. Shows the high dose vitamin C can reduce the mortality in the sepsis and ARDS almost around, can reduce about 35% mortality compared to the placebo, the control group, and also can reduce the duration of the mechanical ventilation for the ARDS patients. So how about the high dose vitamin C for the COVID-19? So actually in the early time of the COVID-19, we tried the high dose vitamin C for our patients, and so this is the why we use the high dose vitamin C for our trials. Actually, another hospital in Shanghai, they also use the vitamin C for the COVID-19 patients. So next, I will briefly talk about our trials of the high dose vitamin C using in the COVID-19 patients. So this is our inclusion criteria. If the patient's P cholesterol less than 300, and we will include the patients. And this is the protocol for our study. We use the 12-gram vitamin C diluted in the saline and put in the syringe pump, controlled, infused within 6 hours, and every 20 hours so total dosage we use the 24-gram vitamin C per day, and for total 7 days. So this is our protocol for high dose vitamin C trials. And this is the flow chart. So first we screw 119 patients, but finally we only take about 54 patients, and one group, the high dose vitamin C group, is only 26, and the placebo is the 28 group. So because there's no new cases available for our trials, we have to stop earlier for the trials. So this is only 54 patients finished the trials. So this is the basic symbols. That's the baseline figures of for the patients. You can see the demography data, no differences between the vitamin C group and the placebo group. And this is also for the other treatment, for other symptoms like the temperature and the vital signs. Actually, no significant differences between two groups during the day of the randomization. And actually, there's no differences in comorbidities and medicine and other treatment between the two groups. So, such as the for the corticosteroid treatment, for the antivirus treatment, there's no differences between two groups. So this is the result for the patients. So if you can see the oxygenation index, so the vitamin C group, the P ratio increased, while the placebo group, the P ratio still going down. So this is in the 7 days of the treatment, the P ratio is the significant differences between the two groups. And also you can see the IL-6 level, also the vitamin C group, the IL-6 level going down our treatment, while the placebo group still going up. So there's the significant significant differences in 7 days of the treatment between the two groups. And also you can see the total bilirubin level, electric bilirubin level. The high dose vitamin C group improved the bilirubin level after treatment. So they have significant differences in 7 days of the treatment between groups. The most important thing is about the mortality. This is a 28 days mortality in these two groups. So you can see the mortality for the placebo groups is almost 40%, almost 35%. However, the high dose vitamin C group is around 20%. So because the sample size is too small, so there's no significant differences between the two groups. But we have the subgroup analysis. If we compare the more severe patients, means it's if the SOMA score more than 3, and then we can find the significant differences between the two groups. So actually, you can see the almost 10% differences mortality between the two groups with the treatment. So actually, for the high dose vitamin C, we have the recommendation in Shanghai and in Guangdong province during the COVID-19 pandemic in China. And also the other societies, such as the European Society, they also endorse the vitamin C treatment for the patients. So in summary, so I mean the COVID-19 patients is always complicated with the pneumonia, ARDS, sepsis, and the multiple organ failure. And also the patients, the severe patients also complicated with the cytokine storm and increased oxidative stress. And the high dose vitamin C can improve the immune function, improve the oxidative stress, and also can improve the inflammatory response, and finally can translate the effect of the improving the oxygenation index, and probably will improve the mortality in the COVID-19 patients. However, because our trial stopped earlier due to lack of the new cases available, but however, we have show some potential beneficial of the high dose vitamin C for our COVID-19 patients. I do hope the large clinical trials can be done in other areas to approve our discovery, to repeat our discovery, and also can make contribution to the to our patients, our COVID-19 patients. Okay, thank you for your
Peng,
for your attention.
Dr. Peng, hold on with me here.
Yeah.
You just did. It's the first time you did that in the meetings that we've had and the clinics and seminars and what have you. Dr. Peng has brought to your attention in absolute terms that the clinical trials he's delivered, and keep in mind, they have also performed a multi-center clinical trial in China, not just a Wuhan clinical trial, okay? Now, so Dr. Peng's got, and both were filed. One was filed with the National Institute of Health, United States. The other one was filed with the British Medical Journal. This doesn't get any higher level on earth, okay? What we need the viewers and listeners to do is to go to the website and appreciate this. If we can produce 300, if we can produce 300 more particular cases, can you mute Dr. Peng?
Yes, I can move. Yes.
If we can produce 300 more patient clinical trial supplements with the Dr. Peng program, and keep in mind we have a total of 4 clinical trials with vitamin C going on in China, 2 with Dr. Mao in Shanghai. Quite serious applications, very successful. And Dr. Chang has just spent 1 year there carrying the logic of intravenous vitamin C to deal with the pandemic into hospitals all over China. Dr. Chang, I bow to you. God bless you, Richard. I beg everyone watching this program to take a screenshot of this particular foundation page here. Okay, what I'm introducing to you is the International Society of Orthomolecular Medicine. These are the doctors around the world today that grew out of the 1945 experience of intravenous vitamin C curing polio. If you do the research on curing polio with or intravenous vitamin C in 1945, and you see the Salk vaccine in 1954, and you get to the true research that they've covered up, thousands of children were harmed and or died, okay? The end of the story is this: vaccines don't cure the symptom. They prevent it. People with the symptom, they need nutrition. In the case of viruses and pneumonias, to heal, to be healed, okay? Orthomolecular medicine, the International Society of Orthomolecular Medicine, is a wonderful place for you all to visit, okay? And in the future, we will be marketing this particular group, which represents the essence and foundations of nutrition-based medicine, to the world. Below is the Orthomolecular Medicine News Service, which Tom brought up, Dr. Andrew Saul. Okay, Dr. Yana Jisawa of Tokyo is the present president of the International Society of Orthomolecular Medicine. Okay, ISOM is the International Society. Dr. Yasama is also the president of the Japanese Society of Orthomolecular Medicine. It's global, and we have to educate people of its existence, and that's my job. Okay, Orthomolecular Medicine News Service releases the journals. That library and that history will blow your mind. I hope with the help of our friend here, a very dynamic contributor whose father is literally a founder of orthomolecular medicine, Gregory Koonin. What the world needs is a video, a film about the story of the birth of orthomolecular medicine, nutrition-based medicine, and what these men did in the 40s to this day. It's the most exciting type of movie in modern terms. And Greg Koonin is sitting with the most amazing content. Okay. So India, join us. You've got the only place on earth, Bollywood, that competes with Hollywood. Okay. So we might need to work with you to get the film done on the birth of nutrition-based medicine. Okay. And keep in mind, we're only talking about guys that have earned what, 3, 4 Nobel prizes. I mean, there's nothing shallow about this. It's world-class in every way. Okay. So I hope you got the screenshot. If you didn't, I'm sure we'll find a way to get it to you by, thefutureofmedicine.org. Okay.
Foundation.
The Future of Medicine Foundation.org. Okay. In about 3 weeks, we're going to be letting Arijit know, and you're all going to be invited to the Dr. Diane Hamilton, first time ever, 3 one-hour series, the Future of Medicine series. Okay. And that'll happen after the new year. Okay.
Jack, there's a very simple explanation to this situation. It's basically that the immune system is one of our most complex systems. So it needs a lot of metabolic pathways. It needs a lot of enzymes. And those enzymes need the cofactors, which are the vitamins and minerals. So if you really want to improve or optimize your immune system, you have to open these communication lines. And the only way of opening that is with vitamins and minerals.
You got it. You've got it. Supplement. I wish Dr. McKee could be on with Life Plus. Life Plus is a company that has just now broken $500 million in sales. The nutrition there is spectacular. I'd like to bring Greg. Can we bring Greg on?
To say it's inspiring that we are having a discussion about the word orthomolecular, because what's shocking is the fact that after almost 60 years or so, that the word is not a household word. And of course, I was very fortunate because I had a front row seat. I had a front row seat to be able to watch the orthomolecular movement really grow. I was fortunate. My father was the first orthomolecular doctor in the United States. And in 1967, he had been very influenced by Linus Pauling's work. And it's interesting when you mention Nobel Prizes, let's not forget that the word orthomolecular comes from the late, great Linus Pauling, who did not get 1 Nobel Prize, but actually got 2. And what the world doesn't realize is that he should have had 3. And that the Nobel Prize that Crick and Watson got was really based on Linus Pauling's work and the material that he provided.
We have one hell of a movie here, my brother, and
of course,
San Francisco.
I can see that.
You got the Indians. Oh my God, we're about to have an impact globally. India, America, Cleveland, Ohio, the rock and roll capital of the world, and San Francisco. Oh my God!
All ahead.
And let me say,
a little help from Romania, Phil Chobin and those guys are doing telehealth on steroids.
Well,
top 20.
I'll say 2 things. Number 1,
sorry, Greg. You got me nuts.
Don't forget Puerto Rico.
History does not repeat, but it certainly rhymes. And if we go back a little bit in time, around the 12th century, Maimonides, of course, made the famous quote that no disease that can be treated by nutrition should be treated by anything else. So, here it is, 1967. My father comes out of the conventional medical world at University of Minnesota and Cornell New York Medical Hospital, working with seriously damaged psychiatric patients. And of course, by 1967, he was so impressed with the concept of Linus Pauling's thoughts that he realized, he had an epiphany, and that was he was willing to ask one question that was considered medical heresy, and that was very simply, is my patient malnourished? So long story short, he got some blood, he sent these patients' blood to the lab, and what did he find out? Would you be surprised to learn that sick patients are malnourished? If I can leave you with just one thing, understand that what my father did was really strategize and develop the strategy of what orthomolecular medicine is. And it's really based on an understanding of diagnostic testing that we we group together it with the understanding of nutrition, pollution, and stress. Are you malnourished? Are you toxic? And of course, the real focus, which I think is what really pertinent to what you're discussing now with regards to COVID, the stress factors, which are really your vulnerabilities. Hormone stress, blood coagulation stress, and of course, there's a relationship between hypercoagulation and COVID. And lastly, our major focus for the last 30 years has been genomic methylation. And I'm not just talking gene testing, I'm talking about the underlying mechanism that is methylation, that really is how is your body responding to your mutations? Because Jack, I hate to tell you this, you and I and all the rest of the people watching this, we are all mutants. We all have mutations. And what we've done,
you got to touch on National Health Federation before
I am with the National Health Federation. That's true. And of course, if people want to learn more about methylation, if they want to learn more about orthomolecular and the history of my dad's work with manganese therapy and treating tardive dyskinesia, niacin, and schizophrenia, our work with carbohydrates, all of that is at our website at drinkyourvitamins.com.
Right.
We have an incredible product that supports methylation from start to finish. And we're happy to answer people's questions and to direct people, because we have a lot of resources on our website. But ultimately, understand the orthomolecular physician is treating you as a whole person. And unlike the conventional toximolecular world, we're actually working with a much more complete picture of what your individual biochemistry is all about. That's what's being said here. And that's what's so powerful. So I encourage everybody, learn a little bit more about orthomolecular, go to our website at drinkyourvitamins.com, and you will be empowered and be able to take control of your health. I believe truly that orthomolecular has the ability to solve the health crisis, not just in America, but around the world.
Bravo. I can't thank you enough for showing up, Greg.
Well, sorry I was late.
Yeah, well, no. You're in San Francisco. You guys are all crazy down there, okay? And everybody knows it, okay?
That's true.
The whole world knows San Francisco is one heck of a place, okay? So to the viewing audience and listening audience, everyone that has taken part in this particular major first event of the coming out of the Future of Medicine Foundation are all members of the Board of Advisors and or board of directors of the foundation. Okay.
Super.
Yeah. So, well, yeah. But I dot the I and cross the T. If we agreed on the phone, we're going to do okay. So you're there already in heart and spirit. Then we'll get the words written on the page as well this week. Okay. I thank you, Arijit and Andrea. I think your award ceremony was really cool. And it made me a little frustrated. I feel just a little sad that we probably made it rushed a little bit. But receiving the award is the key. Martin Mangello and what you've done, Martin Mangello and what you've done on behalf of ITM over the years as the Presidential Service Center and the museum and the inn in Carolinas is like, it's like, what? Ladies and gentlemen, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the chef. He's mixing up.
Thank you so much, Jack. And I just would like to say that everything the doctors have said today, I often say as a White House chef, myself, one of the most important things in life is for chefs to also be farmers, farm to table. And this is what so many of the doctors have said today. Thank you.
I wish Antoine Thomas, is he on? Does anyone see Antoine?
Antoine is on. He is watching, Jack, and I hope you got a lot of laughter last night watching me outside with the chickens as a chicken. I showed you my recipe for my private recipe for chicken food.
Healthy chickens on the farm in Carolina. Okay. Antoine Thomas is the Strategic Alliance, the ITM Legion Inc. Strategic Alliance out of Washington, D.C. He's like Dr. Cheng. Antoine and Dr. Cheng, the crossover doctor, the Chinese, global, United States crossover doctor, right? Dr. Cheng spent, I don't know how long, quite a long time with the United States military. Antoine is dealing on the highest level with our military affairs in Washington, D.C. And I'm a military veteran. Okay. So at the end of the day, and Martin is the epicenter of military veteran affairs. Okay. And so the function of delivering the future of medicine is complex. Okay. So we have a for-profit company, the Future of Medicine, Inc., which we're focusing more on the nonprofit today than the for-profit, one step at a time. Okay. I'm also dealing with a very dynamic global cross-cultural exchange called the First Dragon. China is the first dragon. And we're trying to share this culture with communities around the world so they can understand the people of China. And in relationship to communism, it's very important for me to share this with you. Because single-handedly, my brothers and I, Ambassador Congressman Funderburk and the diaspora, ended communism in Romania on my family name day, Christmas Day, 1989. Google it, okay? But at the end of the day, there's a time and a place for everything. And if you knew China like I knew China when I entered it in 1985 and built the nation, contributing as a pioneer and was embraced and loved by its people and its government, I can tell you this, there is a time and a place for everything. And what the Communist Party has done to feed its people and build a nation is absolutely spectacular in China. How it's dealing globally may not be perceived even correct by me, but that's a learning curve coming out of a nation that suffered and starved for a few hundred years. What would you do with a little power if you hadn't had any? As the most populated nation on earth next to India, you wouldn't do anything different. So as we pray, as we learn to forgive, as we learn to lead, because America is the country that has led a globe into a refinement of economic expansion, never before seen in the history of the world. The sharing of education, the sharing of science, the freedoms that deliver religion and culture and cross-cultural exchange. I want to close with this. I kiss Arijit, I kiss Andrea, and I kiss what you've done, because Davos is about billionaires having meetings to protect their billionaire interests. World Leaders Summit is about global entrepreneurs. And if you know what I know about small businesses and the entrepreneurs that make the world happen, they lead the economic growth in the world. Davos does not. Take that to the bank. And if you don't believe it, study. You'll end up where I am with that knowledge. The saving grace of what you people are delivering is that we are educating. That's all America's ever done. That's all India's ever done. The 200-year occupation by England produced a dynamic nation. Look about the horrific occupation in China, which damaged it. The whole reality of those two nations combined by that border represent the ebb and flow of luck, fortune, in strange circumstances that produce end results that are feeding people, okay? Soon China will be a global leader in feeding people with the United States, okay? And India is growing into its position. I would not doubt that the future of world economy will be complemented by India becoming the next #2 economy after China. God bless everybody on this forum. Get ready. We're getting ready for Diana Hamilton, and that's going to be 3 days of unbelievable life-saving information from the Future of Medicine Foundation. Thank you, Rajit. God bless you, Dr. Peng. Wa'aini, Dr. Peng. Dr. Cheng, wa'aini. Hey, Tom, if you're there, I don't know how to thank you, Tom. Everything you do is brilliant, along with everyone else here. So Dr. Gonzalez is the one that kicked us all off. Thank you, Doc. And thank you.
Hello, Jack.
I need a small favor from all of you, doctors. Dr. Fang, Lauren Xu, and Dr. Richard Chang, could you please turn on your videos so that we can have all panel picture in one frame?
Yes.
Could you please?
Can we turn on everything?
Dr. Fang, we need a light in your face. It's total.
Okay.
No light, Dr.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Tom,
I will.
Let me call Tom right away if he's not there. Tom, are you there?
Oh, that's better. Okay,
Super.
that's better.
Super.
Is Tom there? Okay, hold on. Let me get Tom. I got to get Tom on. Maybe we can do that. Oh,
Yes, please.
Dr. Peng, you look so handsome.
Oh,
Why-
thank you. Thank you.
That's the sweater. That's the sweater I sent you on Christmas. Dr. Tom, can you get back?
Martin, I want to ask you, do you do ketogenic diet cooking? And one day I'd like to come to TC
Dr.
and
Tom, can you get on
enjoy some
somehow?
of fine cooking you
I
do.
want a picture, especially with you. What you did was spectacular. Phones are off the line everywhere. Okay, I think we're not going to be able to get Dr. Tom back. I'm going to level with you.
You want me
One
to
of the
call him?
most serious, I'm 74 years old. I've been dealing with global business and doctors and science. This is 50 years. Okay. At the end of the day, I'm going to tell you something. I have never met a more serious, more focused scientist and lawyer in my life.
Would you be able to go back online to do a group
Thomas
photo?
Levy. Okay. There's only one other guy, Dr. Tong Jing Lung, who has the strategic alliance with ITM in Beijing. Dr. Tong Jing Lung is the developer with ITM. 1992, we established a Shanghai Stock Exchange with Dr. Guo and Dr. Hua. Now, this, you want to set fire to a country with a lot of Chinese in it who love to gamble? Open up a stock exchange, and you're just going to see magic happen. Okay, so at the end of the day, Dr. Tong Jing Lung is very dedicated to what we're doing and watching everything we're doing. He took 350 companies public in China. 1,000 new billionaires. Fact of life. If you go to the ITM website, you'll ITM Limited, you'll learn more. Okay, but Pong, God bless you, and Dr. Chang. I would love you because you've led me and guided us all so well this last year. Would you please close this meeting for us?
Oh, well, thank you. That's an honor, Jack and Arijit and Martin and all. Gonzalez and Michael, thank you very much for being a mentor. Well, I really appreciate it. And I think this is, well, let me put it this way. I think, COVID-19 is a major tragedy, but in Chinese language, it means there's two characters for this, 危机. That means danger and also opportunity. So I think something good out of this badness is that the world is finally recognizing not only the orthomolecular medicine approach to health, but also we begin to see the problems in today's healthcare and medicine. We're not here to say that today's healthcare and medicine is bad. What we're saying is that there are problems that we have to face and recognize the shortcomings of today's medicine and open our minds to other possibilities. Think out of the box. That's the key. Let's work together, save lives. And lastly, and I'm going to talk more on Tuesday, is that COVID-19 is bad. We're in the middle of it. But I'm telling you, this is not the last one. Epidemics and pandemics, surprisingly, are on the rise. We will have more and more in the future. I'm telling you, if we don't learn something out of the COVID, next time I'm guarantee you, is that if something happens again, we will panic again. This whole thing will repeat again. So hopefully out of this, next time something like this happens, we'll start vitamin C, D, zinc, and hydrogen peroxide, all these other available tools to us while we continue to research and study for specific vaccines or drugs. I'm not against that, but we've been waiting for a year and we still don't have vaccine yet, although it's coming, not yet. All right, thank you very much all.
Thank you, Doctor. And, let me just put a little dot the I at what he just said. China took American know-how, 75 years old, applied it in Wuhan, the origin of the virus, to defeat the virus like a spider going through China. Its tentacles, it's going in from Wuhan into the entire nation and has saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Now we have to carry it into India, into the United States, into Eastern Europe, South America. Because if we don't, everything Dr. Chang just said, it's coming true. And if we just get a little prepared with a little nutrition, not one pandemic can ever occur like this again. And fear is what's driving you. And fear is ignorance in action. And there's nothing more frightening than ignorance in action.
That's
Yeah,
another
Jack.
grassroots movement.
Yeah, Jack, I wanted to mention there's a lot of questions from around the world. So
Let's answer questions.
Yes.
Marty.
Can I-
Arijit is going to showcase the many questions because we are streaming worldwide on IBM
Let's go.
television,
Let's go. This is great.
Facebook, and
It's a
YouTube.
miracle. It's a miracle.
Okay. So
Can
the
I add
first,
one more sentence? I really appreciate Jack's effort, and I know this very well. You know, Jack and I have been going on for more than 6 months. You know what? We've been actually oftentimes more than
Almost a year.
yelling into the phones, you know. And I really appreciate Jack's passion, enthusiasm, and energy into this. And finally, you know, he's putting together. And
74 years old.
He's not 74. He's lying. He's not 74.
I'm a young guy who's been doing nutrition
Yeah.
for 50
It's all
years.
the vitamin C, I think.
Eight children. Eight
Now,
children.
Jack, you need to listen to me on Tuesday. Why? Because the first part of my talk is how to live to 120 years young.
I'm on the way. I'm on the way.
74 is young. Okay?
Oh, hey, listen, Doc. The only prayer I make,
I'm a specialist in anti-aging medicine. Don't forget that.
Right, it's coming. The only prayer I make every day is that that my children would outlive me, that I will see them thrive in the world as I depart the world. And if I think about it, I'll cry because I'm a funeral director's son. And what I started to do at 13 years old with my father was read the coroner reports. And I found people dying for no reason. It made me crazy to this minute. Now my family's in Romania. Telehealth, you guys in China, my life in China, 23 years. We have every tool to succeed. And everybody watching this show, you have the opportunity to work with us, help us, guide us. The ambassador program in the Future of Medicine Foundation to represent in your city, in your country, in your county, whatever. Get to us, let us know. We want to sign you up and we want to get the machine moving. Return health to humanity machine. That's consumers, and the corporations will follow us. When consumers talk, and we talk in union, the corporations listen. Then the government listens. And then, like the environmental movement, established the environmental agency that cured so much illness in our earth. I can't even tell you, God bless the environmental agency. We are renewing our dedication to the dignity of human life and its value on earth. Amen.
Super. So with this note, we have a question. The question is coming from Nigeria. Why do we, it's a very silly, but this is a, very common question probably for you guys, but it's a question. So why do we need medicine? Why can't we rely on natural food? When we went for industrialization, we actually killed humanity. And that's the reason probably we are getting a lot of disease. How to prepare yourself for the next, pandemic or epidemic?
Dr. Chang.
Actually, that's a great question. I will answer in detail on Tuesday. But briefly, let me put this way here is that, as Tom Levy would elegantly put it, that there are a lot of issues in our health and disease, but the key point at the biochemical level, at the molecular level, is what we call, actually in plain language, is free radicals. or what we call oxidative stress. Basically, it's the ratio between toxins and antitoxins. You can call it nutrition and antitoxin. Okay. So to answer that question briefly, not to go on to our lecture, is that we keep on having these free radicals, toxins coming in. Also, we produce these free radicals in our body. How do we maintain the balance? Food is a major part. I always say, if you eat nutritious, Martin says elegantly, we have to start from farming. Okay, that's our major problem. Is that if we eat right, 60-70% of our health problems will be gone. But it's 60-70%. The remaining 30-40% require additional medical approach. Okay, for example, the toxins in our body, how can we get it out? Yes, food is important, but also we need other methods. But also, on top of that, we have, for example, look at this panel, several of us are approaching middle age, okay, like Jack and I. So at this level, we have these hormonal changes in our body, not only women, menopause, men also have andropause. Now, that is not something you can use food to adjust. We have to, if you want to intervene, we have a way of intervening, what we call bioidentical hormone replacement. Now, that's part of the medicine. So that's not something food you can do. Just give you some example. You want more detail, we can talk a little bit more on Tuesday.
Of course.
I wanted to add something.
May I say something?
Please.
Go ahead, Greg.
Because we have tested tens of thousands of people over the last 50 years. And the reality is food is great for macronutrients, but you can't eat enough food. Ultimately, it's not what you eat, it's what you're able to deliver to the cells. And approximately 60% of the population suffers from what's called hypercoagulation, thick blood syndrome. And if you don't address that, you're fighting an uphill battle. And this is where micronutrient support comes in handy.
Super answer. Dr. Jack, you're muted.
To add what Greg was saying and Dr. Chang, is that we have a high intake of processed food, and that really unbalances our nutrient density. So we have very high calories with very low nutrient density, which really unbalances our metabolism. So that's the issues that we're dealing with, in addition to what they were mentioning. So that's one of the things we have to do. We have to eat a more nutrient-dense diet, more close to the natural health, more close to organic vegetables, more hydration, more fruits, that kind of thing. But it has to be from an organic origin. And also, some of us are going to need a little bit more of certain nutrients, just because we may have a certain genotropic disease, as Dr. Roger Williams used to call it, or as we know now, a genetic polymorphism, and they're more prevalent that we want to give it credit for. And and that's measuring, as Greg said, is the only way that you could figure it out.
We need integrative. That's the key word. Exercise, sunshine, stress reduction, sufficient sleep. You tell me which one is more important than the other. We need all of them. So that's the view. Not unlike today's medicine, you get hypertension, I'll give you a blood pressure pill. That's wrong. That's only probably 10% of the problems. We need a holistic, integrative, and that's the key word. So integrative, also molecular medicine. That's what we need.
Okay, so we have got another question. This is coming from a very, very unique land, and it's from a Baltic Sea region. So someone is asking that when you look at new generation medicine and when you look at new vitamins, which is consumable for people, we don't know how to differentiate which is good and which is bad. Probably that's one of the core reasons we get a lot of disease. And as per my understanding, maximum disease starts from liver. What is your suggestion? How do you feel that as a human being we can protect ourselves? Next quote, adding with that, you doctors are the direct angels, probably the blessings from God. Help us. Anyone can take it.
Let me start maybe. Well, actually, liver is our chemical processing plant in our body. Very important, no question about it. But no part in our body is not important. And is that important? Of course. You know. So actually, a lot of diseases probably I would say start from your gut, not from your liver. Okay. Now, one major, I'm not going to give a long lecture again, is that one major issue here is that our body is separated from the environment from a protective layer. We know skin. And we also have the lining in our gut, which is the extension of our skin. We have the lining in our respiratory, in the lungs. That's also the extension of skin. Now, this layer is critical. It is to separate us from the environment so that the bad things cannot enter into our body. That's critical. Why do we have so many, do you realize autoimmune diseases are on the rise? We have more and more diseases, for example, Hashimoto's thyroid problems, skin rash, and many of these rheumatoid diseases. Why? Because our so-called, our immune system is fighting against us. Why? Are they crazy? No. The major reason here, this is one example, just one example, is that because of our lining, because of the bad quality food, like Martin has mentioned earlier, is that all these toxins in our environment, particularly from the food, because that's the bulk load, is that these toxins are tearing up our GI lining, making breaks, something we call, some of you may have heard of the term leaky gut. Technically, scientifically, we call it increased intestinal permeability. Basically, larger molecules that are foreign to our body, naturally not to be in our body, now are able to enter into our body. Now, these molecules will cause problems. That's actually the very start of a lot of issues. Again, this, in my view, I consider it as a process. The root causes are still the toxins, poor nutrition. But this process is important because of these large molecules, toxins can enter into our body, wreak havoc, causing all other problems. Okay, now that is one issue. Now, if we look at the diseases and health in this fashion, then we understand. Then we will understand how we can, approach, like Greg mentioned earlier, the micronutrients, and Michael also mentioned, we simply can't get enough nutrients. For example, somebody mentioned, I think you mentioned, Arijit, about lemon. Do you know, I take 10 grams on average, 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day. I'm heavily influenced by Tom Levy, and I think he makes perfect sense. I think Michael, we're on the same line here, is that we need a lot of vitamin C. Why? Because our vitamin C content in our food has decreased significantly, and also the toxins in our food has increased dramatically. But in order to get 10,000 milligram vitamin C, you know how many oranges you need to take? 150 oranges, middle-sized 150 oranges. That's a lot. When you're taking that vitamin C, yes, you get 10 grams of vitamin C. You know how much sugar you're getting at the same time? 2.7 kilogram. So when you're getting 10 grams of vitamin C, you're getting 2.7 kilogram of sugar, and that's going to kill you. Okay.
Doc.
Yeah, I wanted to add something. Basically, in relation to the liver has these detoxification system 1, system 2, and system 3. And the point here is that these require many metabolic steps, require thousands of enzymes, and these enzymes require cofactors. And the cofactors are vitamins and minerals. So it takes a lot of energy to detoxify, and it takes a lot of nutrients to detoxify. And it has to be nutrients, as we were mentioning, from a non-toxic, source. So it has to be organic nutrients in that sense.
Now, hold on. We have literally, I'm telling you, we have thousands of questions. There's tens of thousands of people. So we got to answer these questions like, okay?
Well, let me just add one thing.
Go ahead.
And that is, I can't help it. Everyone should look into methylation and learn about methylation. We are carbon creatures. Virtually all carbon compounds are toxic to the human body. I mention it because methylation is the key to heart function, circulation, digestion, detoxification, immunity, brain function, and energy regulation in the body. It is responsible for more biologic end products in the human body that controls and regulates all of our body function than any other system in the body. From your neurotransmitters to your energy regulators to, as we've been discussing a lot today, detoxification, the master antioxidant of the body, glutathione, is made through the process of methylation. So I encourage everybody to at least find some information on it. If you want to, go to drinkyourvitamins.com, read The Healing Power of Methylation, because this has become the most important, significant work in literally 60 years of our work in preventive medicine and orthomolecular therapy. And I think people will realize how powerful this is, especially now when it comes to DNA methylation and protection of RNA, and especially in dealing with an assault like COVID.
And it's not expensive. It's not expensive.
We have made it easy.
You know, cut your beer in half, add vitamins, and guess what? You're healthy. You can't catch COVID. Okay, go ahead.
So for the sake of the summit and the time is, so what we are going to do, we are proposing from World Leaders Summit. I'll give you a very basic idea how it all started. It started with a very simple, crazy idea in my brain that probably I can bring the world together to share the knowledge, and I'm humbled and honored and blessed enough that people actually supported the whole cause without any kind of question. They voluntarily came and supported. And all of them, to be very honest, all of them are so kind. Marty, my friend, is an amazing support. Andrea is like an amazing support. I can go on with names. Dr. Tina Alton. I mean, I can go on with names, you know. So they are all great human beings. And thank you so much for all the support that you guys have shown to me. Well, for the sake of everyone, let me reveal this fact. My timeline, my lifestyle for the last 3 months, continuous basis, I've been sleeping for 2 hours in a day and 22 hours working continuous basis, doing multitasking with all my teammates. They are probably sleeping for 4 to 5 hours in a day. Kudos to them. What a energy, guys. Thank you so much for bringing all these together. Thank you all the ecosystem partners to, you know, bring this forward and share these news, blasting, you know, into social media and internet, getting thousands of questions in our social media. So I propose to Mr. Jack and Marty, probably we can have another round of this kind of only discussion with all these questions, probably, you know, which will maybe encourage a lot of people to learn and understand. With this note, probably we can have amazing world and handhold with each other. Probably go for something which is really cool. And Marty and me are discussing that maybe we should propose something like this to have a super cool discussion like this, probably on a monthly program, probably have something which is an educational format where people will get a lot of information. And for all of you, this is like this summit is completely free to join, attend, share. Everyone is doing it for free, but yes, they are getting a lot of value as a get back. I'm blessed to have all of you. And taking Marty's word, this is League of Justice. We need you. Are you that next superhero to join League of Justice? So before ending this summit for today, I need our beautiful judge and jury, Andrea, to please kindly turn off her mic and maybe say a few words to the awardees and industry awardees who got the award, and probably formally give a closing note to all of us. Andrea, over to you.
Thank you so much, and big congratulations on organizing this amazing event, Arjit, and bringing us all together. I was happy to be a judge in this wonderful panel today, where I learned a lot myself as well. Very informative. And congratulations to all the startups that had the courage to submit their applications to us for the review and for the judgment, of course. So I think with the entrepreneurship, it's all about thinking outside of the box on how to solve global problems, whether local in geography or global in means, entrepreneurs will find a way. And that's what we've seen from all the startups today. And not only will they find a way to solve the problems, they will evolve, they will rethink based on the situation that's happening in the world. And entrepreneurs are agile, they're innovative, and they're not just working on great ideas, solving problems, they're building up our economy. And that's, I think, one of the most important takeaways. Their ideas are creating jobs. They're enhancing prosperity, and they're inspiring the next generation of rising entrepreneurs who see how their minds can be our greatest resources. And after all, the invention and innovation do not occur without a strong and powerful motive. Great ideas come from great minds, and great minds go where they're welcomed. So I think we all must work together. Educational institutions, governments, digital parks, investors, venture funds, to promote and to foster the spirit of entrepreneurship. So I applaud the organizers of this event, but most importantly, all of you for taking a leap of putting your business ideas out there to be judged on 5 categories, which are business model, innovation, leadership and team, revenue model, and scalability. And with that, it's my great pleasure and personal honor to have been the judge in the Startup Award presentation. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Anjia. World Leader Summit is happening from 7th of 16th of December 2020 with roar, with shout, loud and clear. 120 plus speakers, 90 plus countries. Stay tuned for 15th, 14th and 16th December. Thank you so much. Sayonara, ciao, ciao, paka paka.
Aloha.